The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Good evening and welcome to Down the Garden Path with your hosts Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To contact us live this evening, send us an email instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Thank you, Gary, and welcome everyone to this episode of Down the Garden Path, where each week we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. And we think it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance. Don't we, Matthew?
We do.
I am Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design for the past 10 years. It is currently a design-only business here east of the GTA in Ontario, Canada. And with me is Matthew Dressing.
Hello, everyone. And yes, I am Matthew Dressing of Natural Affinity Designs, another design company here again in the
He's
Osprey
just
GTA.
starting and getting off.
Just starting, yeah. And yeah, we enjoy every week doing Down the Garden Path, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve that great garden. We're going to learn right along with you from each other, from our research, and from our guests that join us here each week on the show, like this evening. So we welcome all of your questions via social media and emails, as we do have a caller this evening.
Excellent. A call-in guest.
Call-in guest,
Yeah.
yes.
And are you excited it's raining?
Finally.
I know. We need some rain. And they're saying, they're on the radio, they're saying, it's like at the other radio, they're saying it's going to rain all night. And I'm
How
like,
dare you?
I know. Sorry. Sorry, Gary. It's going to rain all night. And I'm like, yes. And stop by tomorrow. So that's the best.
Yeah, we just stopping the first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
So nice commute to work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And nice for weeding the garden tomorrow.
Right.
Which is why I think the rain ties into improving our garden maintenance, and which ties into our excellent topic of this evening. I'm very excited, or we are very excited, to have Darla Malcolm Hauraney here with the Garden Girls. And so we're excited to listen to her and talk about her garden maintenance business. So I'm just going to read a little bit of a bio from Darla's website, but you can check them out at thegardengirls.ca. Marrying into the family printing business moved her from being a government employee to working with her husband and his parents. No small feat. Seeing the printing industry starting to change in 2006 challenged her to wonder if it was smart to have all her income coming from the family business. And the thought of anyone going back into the workforce, it was going to be her. So she brushed off the cobwebs off her resume and started going to interviews. But shocker, and I could feel the same way, how could she go from being her own boss to working from someone else? It just did not seem to fit. Coincidentally, her best friend Lucy, a full-time teacher, had recently mentioned that she wanted to do something different to keep busy during the summer months. So the Garden Girls was started in her own garden. Lucy and Darla were working away at pulling weeds when a neighbor was out for a walk and said, "How would you like to work in my garden?" To our surprise, they were serious. She decided to get out of the office and into the dirt. So Garden Girls was born. Based in Oakville, Ontario this year, the Garden Girls is finishing off their 10th year with 12 ladies and one gentleman working together to bring calm and happiness to gardens all over the GTA. They service homes from mid-Toronto all the way to the West End and Burlington, and they pride themselves on paying close attention, listening to their homeowners' requests and visions, and making sure that when you get home from a long day's work, you can sit back with a drink and enjoy your beautiful garden. I think that sounds fabulous, don't you?
Doesn't it?
Welcome to the show, Darla.
Hi, thank you, Joanne and Matthew.
How was that long bio, which you wrote, I guess, for your website, and so I shared with everybody?
I did write that. And it's probably, it was last year. I guess this year we're technically in our 11th year, and I think we had 16 gardeners this year.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that is...
So it's always changing, which is good.
Yeah, definitely. So I know I did mention a few things about your business in that spiel, but why don't you tell us a bit more? Because I know it goes beyond garden maintenance as well.
Yes, well, we definitely, what we love to do the most is take care of people's gardens. That's, I think, our favorite thing to do. People are spending so much money on new garden places and, especially in new homes and things like that. So why not? And then not even a year, and it could all go to waste very quickly
right.
if it's not taken care of properly. So we like that first and foremost. And then we do some rearranging, or when it's not a new garden, take caring of an existing garden. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just rearranging what you have, splitting, moving things around. Things change. Suddenly you have shade where it was once sunny, or vice versa. You lose a big tree, and you have to move some things around.
Absolutely. That happens. I'm sure that happens more than people realize, doesn't it?
Oh, it happens really. It can happen very quickly. I think, you get to a house like even my own, that 20 years down the road, what was once full sun, all the way around, now is like quite a bit of shade, and I might lose my 3 city trees in the next year, and it's going to go back to full sun again. So.
Yeah. That's what happened to me. I had shade, and I lost my 3 city trees as well. And now I'm dealing again with sun.
Yep. And hopefully it was the same things that were there, and you'll just be happier again. And if not, well, then you might have to do some rearranging of all that stuff you put in to accommodate the shade.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely some tweaking, so for sure.
For sure. And we do some, Lucy and I do arrangements at some storefronts and houses as well, where we do the early spring, summer, fall, and winter arrangements outside the door.
Oh, excellent. And that's because people like having help with that, don't they?
Yes, because they tend to get ones that are too small, or, we like to fill the pot, but it doesn't matter if it's a small pot or a big pot, but, and we like to keep them natural without a lot of fake things added to them.
Matthew likes the sound of that.
Very natural when it comes to arrangements like that, especially Christmas type things.
Yeah.
Oh, especially the winter. We like to stick with sort of a Canadian winter theme, and it lasts. And in January and February, you don't mind looking at it because it's frozen solid there for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you make it too Christmassy, then by February you're kind of done, right?
Yep.
Or beyond done. That's from that standpoint.
So true.
Yeah. So you have really found a niche, haven't you, in the industry that, because a lot of people say they do landscape maintenance, right? We see the trucks and we see all the guys with their big blowers and stuff. But really that's not the market you're going for. You're really going for people who are looking for something more with more knowledge and more, not that those guys don't care, but more specialized. How's that? Better word?
Yeah, you get some who absolutely don't know what they're doing, for sure. There's some good ones out there that do know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But then sometimes people are sitting there with, as the month goes on, that they don't have time. They're doing a spring cleanup early, April, say. They're doing a fall cleanup in like November, but nothing is happening in between. So you get these spaces in your garden that when something's finished, and it looks horrible. And you have to look at it for the whole season. Or they're cutting things at the wrong time and wondering why their hydrangeas aren't blooming anymore, their lilacs aren't blooming anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as much as we try on the show to kind of tell people when to do it and when not to do it, unfortunately, not everybody's listening yet. Right, Gary? We're getting there.
I'm learning.
Some people just come into it and they're like, oh, this is just out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, if you're just a little more patient with it and, plan better next year, cut it to even a little bit more so that you're not dealing with something that's growing crazy on you halfway through the year.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of homeowners they want it to look good, but they don't necessarily know what it is or care to know what it is. They want someone else to just make sure it looks good, right?
Yes.
Exactly. They just want to come home and enjoy the site and don't really want to, do anything else.
Right.
That is very true.
Excellent. So then your team kind of looks after that for people.
Yes, so we try we try to grow with the garden and with the way they're expecting it to look, and if they can put any input, we help. I mean, there's just so many different aspects when dealing with each customer that they're all different. So we don't make just like a one package thing, spring and fall cleanup or some people would some people have a budget. We have to follow that and stick with that and do the best we can of what's appropriate at the time.
Right.
Some people, want everything done, every leaf, every week. And then you have the others that were only there, maybe spring, summer, and fall, but still keeping things looking nicely. So managing all the differences between all the properties is probably the toughest part.
Yeah.
And who likes what when.
Right.
Because everybody likes it a little bit different.
That would be tricky.
That's the hardest part, because you have some homeowners who want to be still involved. There's some that, it takes a lot to allow someone else to come in and touch their babies out there. The first time I had the girls doing my own yard that I wasn't here to watch. I mean, it really can. It's very personal. So you have to be mindful of that. And, there's some people who are very cautious about not trimming anything because they're worried about the plant. And then there's the opposite end of it. Usually it's a husband and wife difference. One would like everything cut back severely, and the other's like, please don't hurt them.
Yeah.
So you're trying to balance in between.
Definitely. I could see that being the situation. But weeds too, being able to, I don't think people realize that when they let it get ahead of them, then they kind of people tend to give up, right? Mm-hmm. But with having a service like yours, when you're staying on top of it, it just changes everything, doesn't it? Yes, because you always have sort of, well, not always, but you generally have a bit more of an extreme makeover in the beginning because things have gotten too far. And then we start to get it in control, and then they see it's getting in control, and they're like, "Oh, okay, you can stop now." But it could just take missing one visit that things jump out of control again, and so it's better to just that we actually get our time down more, and we're there less time, right? But still coming, and then versus leaving it and then letting it go for 3 months, and then you're sort of kind of back in the same. Yeah. As you were at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we prefer to keep up on it. Not everybody can do that, but at least I think they see the difference if they let us try. Right. And you have more work May and June, July, August, and September can really calm down in the garden. And then we're always waiting, like now, is it time to cut it all down yet? Oh, I know. Yeah. Do I? Don't I? Well, we can't wait for everyone for the fall. I mean, if you have enough properties, you can't wait for everyone to be, all the leaves to fall and everything to be done. So we try to keep up with it as we go along. So then that way, if the weather suddenly changes, then it's a good spring cleanup that's going to happen. Right.
True. Yeah.
Instead. Yeah. I mean, that's my concern now too, because I'm in the same, I'm just thinking, because I think I'm worried that we'll get a frost and then 2 days later we'll get snow. You know what I mean? The next day. Yeah, or so I mean, we haven't had a frost, and we really don't need to be cutting everything back. There's still buds on things. There's things that haven't changed color yet.
Yep.
You know, but it was 18 degrees today on October. What are we? The 23rd? Like this is, and as nice as it is to have an extended season, as far as, although I think everybody is ready to put on their sweaters.
Yes, at some point you're just like, just do it. Just do it. Yeah. Get the ball rolling and get started. Others, it's just at least do all the stuff that is spent. I mean, the daylilies have been long gone for, probably since the beginning of September anyway. Things like that, and then all your words. And gathering mushy hostas isn't as much fun as cutting them off now when they're still a little crispy.
That is true, too, isn't it, Matt?
It can wait. It's just balancing the time so that, because we never know when it's going to change. We have sort of, even this year, the fall has been beautiful and long. I think I posted a picture today of a year ago when we were in hoodies and sweaters, and you could tell the wind and the grayness and how much it had changed. Versus today. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I know. It's just incredible. Now, as far as fall cleanups go, I know Matthew and I have talked a bit about that on the show. How the trend has kind of moved to not necessarily putting the garden to bed, right? And cleaning it all up pristine. It's for the native insects and for, lots of the birds and things like that. Have you found, is that also your policy, or do you find the clients really want it to be spick and span?
I think most people still want that sort of that perfectly clean look, all done. But I do worry about going overboard with nothing left for the bugs and everybody to hide. So, and I think that's part of taking the fall cleanup slowly, that they get a chance to move to something else that isn't going to be cut down. So I guess. There's always a neighbor who's not going to probably be cut down either.
Right, yeah.
So all the bugs move to the neighbors and come back next week. But yes, I agree that maybe the industry's gotten a little too perfectly clean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to calm down a bit on that and leave some leaves in the end and leave some things. And then there's places for all these, our little critters to hide.
Yeah, and I think the homeowner, there's been so much, don't you think, about the insects, about the bees especially.
Yes, everyone is definitely a big change this year on planting, plants for the butterflies, for the bees, and I thought that was really good.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's a little easier of a sell because, before it's like, well, I want you to pay me, but I'm only going to partway clean up your garden.
Exactly.
But now it's kind of like, well, I'm going to clean up your garden for the insects, for the bees, and do to the best level. And hopefully they see the value in that, right?
Yes, and I think if there's still some things that will be left behind, people leaving up certain things like their sedums and stuff, I think there's still, leaving up grasses, there's still places for things to hide. Obviously, when it's a mushy hosta, it's going to, nothing's going to be really hiding in and underneath that. But leaving some leaves, and I think that helps just because how long these leaves are going to take to fall. Like, usually the willows are last in December, so there's usually some neighbors blowing around and coming back into your garden, for sure, as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So it's just, and it's interesting how it's challenging in this industry because we never know when it's going to start and when it's going to end, right?
Nope.
Such a
surprise every year. Although, but then it's, because they're always warning you. It's gonna. First they tell you winter's going to be horrible, and then they'll say, well, fall's going to be a nice long fall, but you really don't believe anybody because we just don't know what we're going to get.
That's why I call it weather. Whether it's this, whether it's that, you never know.
Oh,
that's so true. That's a good one.
That is a good one. That is a good one, for sure. So tell us about the regular, you mentioned, we talk a bit about the regular maintenance, just the benefit. Do you have great feedback from your clients just on how much more they enjoy their gardens and that they see the value in the regular, having you come on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think most people are shocked that we recommend only maybe once a month. Now, a lot of people start off calling and saying they want weekly or bi-weekly. Find very few properties need that type of attention unless they're really big. So, monthly you're going to have weeds coming in and growing, and, the shrubs are not going to be perfectly shaped all the time. They're going to grow, and they'll need cutting back harshly sometimes, depending on how they grow.
Yeah.
So, but I think they really do see, they can watch their garden a little bit better and see, it growing naturally without constantly being, when they're touched weekly, sometimes it's just too much. They just don't get a chance to relax. Some are constantly hedged week after week after week, and the poor things don't get a chance to grow. So I think they get a chance to learn that it doesn't need to be so perfect as well, and that, it gives us some work to do to come once a month, so that we have some time there, and then we're not just there for a few minutes. We'd like to be there a little longer. and that they get a chance to really see their garden and going through the stages a little bit better, and that when you do leave it, it will come back. We still come no matter what.
Yeah.
No what preventative things you try to put in there.
Yeah, like the fabric. Things like the fabric and that type of thing?
Oh, yes. People try that, and we usually end up, it's so much easier not to have any of that in there.
Yeah.
Because then it starts to move, and it starts to poke up, or your mulch disappears, and it's not holding it down anymore. Unless there's river rock, there's really no, and open space. If there's going to be, you can't have seeding perennials, and then have that fabric, because they'll never get a chance to seed themselves again. At least not very well.
So when you have clients or guests that ask about the landscape fabric and putting it down, what do you recommend? Do you recommend anything to them, or?
I usually tell them, don't do it. Please don't do it. Unless it's going to be like an open area, really open, where, it's just hard. You can't, like, curves. It doesn't cut well to go around curves unless it's going to be like an open where it'll be a lot of rock and you don't want, things popping up from underneath.
Right.
It doesn't prevent anything from coming in from the top. So as long as you get leaves and compost happening, and then the weeds will just start growing in it again anyway.
Right.
So really it's better just to have the open dirt with a nice mulch layer, and then it's easily to pluck them because the birds and your neighbors are going to send things your way anyway.
Yeah. It's inevitable, really.
It really is.
Nature
Unless, say, you have to deal something with like gout weed or something really heavy, where you really need to put some layers down to stop something from like that if you can't dig it out deep enough.
Yeah.
But generally, over time, we can conquer or try to conquer things like gout weed or lily of the valley.
Yeah. And so is your business, would you say, kind of like, how does it split up between your regular maintenance clients and then like the people that have that already gone, like new clients whose gardens are already kind of run away and you've got to bring it back? Do you kind of have to probably juggle that as far as the schedule goes? We do juggle that. So most people end up becoming regular monthly, especially if we've had a few over time where they, you come in, you do the whole cleanup, and then they don't have you back, and the next year you're doing the exact same thing again. And I think, and then I'll say, like, rather than throwing, your whole year's budget to a one-time thing, and it's going to come back, let's split it up and switch to regular maintenance, and you'll see the difference as we get things under control. Or if it's a lot of empty space, fill the space, because sometimes empty space, is their worst enemy. Yeah. When there was something bad there, that's going to continue, or even pare it down and go back to some sod. In some cases. But so we most people, most are monthly. We have a few that are just spring, summer, fall only. And then there's some that will be on a sort of an on-call basis when they need you. Then we just warn them that it might take a few weeks. We might not be able to come right away. We're usually working on a 3 to 4 week schedule, so we try and fit them in when we're back in their neighborhood again with another property, and then get back there as best as we can. So do you and your staff have like a route? You kind of... It's all over the place. Unless it's a weekly customer, then obviously they're a bit of a priority to plan, and any of those that are weekly or bi-weekly usually are planned around their yard waste pickup. So that way that's easier for them. Oh, that's a good point. But then the rest are mainly monthly. Okay. Well, that is good. That's
an excellent. Yeah, that's interesting. Never thought of planning it around the pickup, right?
Yeah.
Because then,
Yeah, we obviously can't plan that for everybody.
No, but as best you can.
But when it gets to especially the bi-weeklies, and you're there every other week, then they would, they tend to be mostly, well, depends on when their pickup is. In this case, they're Fridays, so they almost always are on a Thursday.
Right.
And then we have to plan, those are the only ones we plan around if there's a weather delay. They have to still happen that same week, but the rest are all, the next day or first of the next week. Like this week, we don't know what the rain's going to do.
Right. Yeah, it's supposed to stop tomorrow morning, so hopefully it won't impact, and it'll help tomorrow be easier to pull weeds, right?
Exactly. It'll be way easier, and it's hard to tell someone we have a bit of an extreme makeover to do this week, and I was like, we're going to have to tell her, can you really water it in well before we go? But hopefully in this case it will be well wet before we get there.
Yeah, that's good.
What about just for your schedule? Do you find that people prefer a certain time of the week? Like, do they enjoy later in the week just to have things looking really clean and crisp for, weekend entertainment? Or
unlike the lawns, which most people obviously always like that closer to the weekend.
Right.
No, the gardens, even if we're there, mid of the week, it's going to look good for. I mean, sometimes we get an occasional, having a special event this week, can we make sure our visit is just before then? And that's fine, and I'll just make sure, as long as they tell me early enough, I'll fit it in. But other than that, it doesn't seem, it seems to be fairly easy to work around. And the garden just lasts longer. I mean, it usually doesn't look, unless we have a huge windstorm the next day, usually the garden stays good.
Yeah.
Really good looking for at least the next 2 weeks to 3 weeks. So
yeah.
So Darla, we have Carla
question
asking a question via email. Thank you, Carla. And she asks, I thought you were going to say it. So
you go ahead.
She asks, are your services affordable to the average homeowner?
Oh, affordability, yes.
Yes.
Well, we certainly aren't the cheapest, but I think having people who know what they're doing, there's a certain value in that. We're not hiring, a whole bunch of, we have students that filter in through the summer to help out, but the rest of the teams in the core group are all, avid gardeners.
Oh, good.
So
that's great.
There's a certain amount of value in having that where they're not, it's not a bunch of minimum wage kids that you're throwing in people's gardens and say, here, go, go have fun. So I think it's important to realize the difference with that. So, but that's when we work around a budget.
Right.
If someone has, we're probably, we tend to travel in a team of 3. So you are having 3 gardeners at the same time, but we can work with, some of our properties are down to an hour budget, depending on size, obviously.
Right.
So if you can get into some core Toronto homes where they're very small, we're only going to be there an hour. Mm-hmm. So, in let's say up to $150, I find that's very reasonable.
Yeah.
To have 3 people come and work in your garden for that hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, if they've let something get a little bit out of control, yes, it's going to take a little bit more to get it there. But again, we can do it in, let's tackle the worst first and work our way. Mm-hmm. So, there's many times we've worked with a budget and it's taken just a little bit longer, but the end game is still, having a really nice yard that you're happy with. So.
Yeah, and it's a quality service, and I think people pay that or more than that for their lawns. Yeah. And I know Matthew posted a picture this week, that cartoon you posted about the dad's watering the grass, and the son is like, what did he say? No, we can't eat the grass.
Yeah.
We can't eat it. And the son is like, well, then why are we growing it? And so the amount of money people throw at their grass compared to the value that sits in their gardens, you know, and having the mistakes that people can make. And I've heard it time and time again when I'm out with clients doing landscape designs about somebody, dug that up, or even the spouse, right? The spouse is in the doghouse because she asked him to move the hydrangea and he moved the special tree peony, or, something like that. So, so definitely budget, but it's great to know that you are flexible in a budget, because I don't know that lawn removal, snow removal, that type of stuff is just a necessary thing for many people.
And it's a weekly, like that's the thing that you need. A lot of people are trying to even cut back on that and try and do like bi-weekly or monthly, and then the next thing you know, you have a hayfield to cut, which is not as easy to cut.
Yeah.
So, and then that it reflects on everything else too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, but yes, it's just a matter of, working around a budget and finding the best way to get them to that point. Can we do everyone's budget? Maybe not, but we try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, especially depending on the space. So thank you for your question, Carla. And I know that's probably something you get asked often, Darla.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
we do try, and some people are honest and say they can't afford that. And like there are single gardeners out there that might be more affordable.
Right.
But, so it does create a bit of a problem for some people, but some homeowners can even come out and work with us in their garden.
Oh, wow.
So that they can help learn it more themselves and maybe some better ways of tackling some bad areas, and a way to tackle it that sort of gives, most people just don't know where to start.
Right.
Like anything when it's gotten out of hand. And at least getting that inspiration going, and then they're off on their own, which is great too.
Yeah, and I think that's great to hear that your staff are avid gardeners. That it's not. I mean, I do get then summer and then like June and the busy time. You need to get some students, probably more university students, right? It's not like you've got some high school students out there that are just killing time, right?
No.
So you've got some motivated people. You've got some avid gardeners. I mean, I think that's a great service to offer.
Yeah, and everybody likes something different because there's so many different garden styles, plant styles. There's things are changing. There's always new things, and there's a lot of old things. Having age ranges in our gardeners, where our oldest is 70, which is my mom.
Oh, okay.
And down to some of the younger university students, but they might be heading down the design path as well. But sometimes they just need to learn what's really out there in the garden. It looks great on paper, but
yeah.
I get them to work in the barberries every time. I love planting barberries. It's like, here, let's go weed the barberry area.
Oh, is that their hazing?
Yeah. Kind of, yes. If they tell me what their favorite plant is and it's barberry, then yes, we'll make sure we work in some barberries.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing like seeing a new designer who has never had a garden of their design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, they have some wonderful, great ideas.
Oh, for sure.
And then sometimes you're just, then working the seasons, seeing the spring, the summer, the fall, and seeing, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell some homeowners when they only go shopping in May.
Right.
And only buy everything that's blooming at that time, and then they wonder what happened to the rest of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, it's really, you get a chance to see and, how it all goes together.
And do you give some design advice, or do you point that kind of thing out to them to say, okay, there's, your garden looked great last month, but this month there's nothing happening? And
well, some people, that's exactly what it is. They'll just say, I don't know what happens. And then you're looking around the garden and you're going spring, 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 spring. And this is why you're feeling your summer and your fall is not so, exciting out here.
And so do any of your clients ask you to go out and choose new plant material and plant things?
Yes.
Or,
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, we, some will just say this area is lacking, let's add some more. If they trust me enough to bring some things, then or tell me a color scheme or whatever and go get a few items to add to that space, then definitely I will do that. I'm certainly not a designer by the sense, but I can certainly, I tend to be a very balanced person. But if you get a garden that needs to be a little bit more free, then I'm going to go find that we'll work with a couple of different designers.
Right.
And, get them that part of what they would like to see in their garden. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and you've been doing it long enough, right? So I know like you said, you're not a designer, but yet you've been in people's gardens for 11 years. So you're going to have that eye of seeing what's the best plant for that spot.
Yeah.
Well, yes, and why something's not working for them. Like a lot of people don't read the labels when they go buy their plants. Put the shady thing in the full sun and the sunny thing in the full shade, and or plant something that grows to 15 feet tall and the smallest space available.
Yes.
So sometimes we do have to move things. I've had a property recently where there's some well-meaning friends that give people things.
Yeah.
And a beautiful, like Trinity Bellwood's property, the front lawn, and we arrived to clean up, and there's goutweed planted, and it's a very clean sort of modern design, and then all of a sudden all this goutweed was popped in. We took it out, planted it in a planter.
In time? Do you think you got it in time?
And then wrote the homeowner because they weren't home.
Oh,
so
okay.
I wouldn't just yank it out and put it somewhere else for it to die. And she said, thank you for gardening.
Yes. I have a spiel that I give. So when I'm at a house and they say that, their mother has a big garden or their sister-in-law has a big garden and, they've got some plants to share with them. And so I always say, I said, that's great that they want to be helpful. I said, but often I said, just keep in mind that if anything they want to give to you very freely, it means they have too much of it, which means shortly you will also have too much of it. Yes. So I said sometimes the best thing you could do is just to say no thank you.
And, sometimes, yes.
And blame your designer, blame me, and say, well, she didn't put it in the plan and she didn't think, I said, whatever you want to do. Because I went to one house and they had like buckets and buckets of tiger lilies. in the back against the back fence, and they're like, do you think you can work these into the design anywhere? And I had to say, nope, you need to toss those. Like those need to go. This is this is not. And I explain, and then they look at each other and they're like, okay, thank you for telling us.
Yeah.
So
there's some better choices.
That's right. Oh, for sure.
I wanted to ask, just jumping backwards towards lawn, what's your perspective on, the trend of turning lawns into gardens? Are people in favor of removing or, growing their gardens, removing the lawn, or do you find it's...
having more and more people asked to come and take out, especially even the boulevards, and removing the grass, especially when they're really small properties, and they don't want to have a lawnmower or a weed whacker type item to cut, because then you do have to keep it cut. Weekly is best. But then they put in these gardens, and some look really nice. I mean, they start off with great intentions, but very quickly it's the same. It needs the same amount of attention, if not more. Yeah. And the next thing you know, they have a wild, crazy mess.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can't see past it for people backing out of their driveway.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're putting those in for people, but then they're not wanting the maintenance?
I haven't put any in. I usually try to convince them out of it.
Oh, do you?
Well, I guess it depends on how much commitment they're willing. Yeah. I mean, having a conversation first about how much their commitment is to taking care of it, and realizing it's going to be a lot more work than the grass. Right. I guess unless it's planned really well, you have salt from the clearing of roads. You're going to have heavy snow. Lord knows could be damage from your sidewalk guy and the snowplow guy. Yeah, you never know. And you have to put in the right things. I just find most of them are not being taken. They're thinking of it as an easier option. That they have to do even less maintenance than the weekly lawn cutting.
You're right.
But that's not
the
case.
Yeah, it's just different maintenance, right?
A completely different maintenance. And if they weren't doing the work up in the regular garden, which you can usually tell, then they need to be prepared for a lot more work, and just making sure they plan for the right things to go down there as well. They shouldn't be tall things, and I'm sure might be some rules in each municipality of what you can put in, and if you can take them out or not. Yeah. I've seen a few that look really, really good, but they get very weedy very fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the salt tolerance a big one, right? You want to plant stuff that you've got to do a bit of research and know what to put in.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. But I've seen the trend happening more and more, but you're right. I mean, I feel the same, that you've really have to make sure that they know what they're in for.
Yes. And that I think it's more work, but, it depends if you have the grass. I find the lawn isn't that hard to take care of. I mean, it's a weekly thing, and it's just, cut back and forth, but finding the time for the gardening.
Yeah.
And especially if it's a big enough space, or you also have usually the summer heat with them between asphalt, and so that's another factor they have. And watering. Mm-hmm. They don't have the watering in place to water them either. So it just seems to be like a triple whammy of that they're not. Then they have to water that space too, and they usually consider that a city space and don't want to add water to it.
Don't want to do that.
Yes.
Now, I wonder if you're regular clients, though, where you're regularly maintaining everything, and they're thinking, "Oh, this is easy because she's looking after it." Like, do you find they're asking for the gardens to be maybe not removing the whole lawn, but maybe make the gardens bigger or add more to them because you're taking care of them now?
Exactly. So then, yes, in that case, it will probably go well as long as the water factor, goes in with it as well. People want to put in these huge, huge gardens, but tend to forget it's a good idea to put the watering in with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Or just after it. So. And
do you find a lot of people are doing like full irrigation lawn and garden systems, or are they doing like a drip irrigation just in the garden?
A lot more people are doing the drip ones.
Right.
I find lately, I guess, and they've come up with so many new, better ways of getting water to trickier places without having the whole dug-in watering system. Mm-hmm. So that's been really, a nice improvement. Or even, like raised planters and stuff like that you can still get water to.
Right.
And that's half the battle.
Yes.
We never know what kind of year we're going to have.
Yeah.
Too wet, not wet enough, but having it there to help you, it improved everything, lawn and garden, so much better.
And do any of your clients have you water for them?
We have had a lot, especially last summer. We had a lot of people that had just put in new gardens. Then they're going away on vacation. So we did a lot of going and watering their gardens last summer. And we had a few returns this year as well. Mm-hmm. So we just planned for those outside of our normal day duties so that we can go and water them up for them. Some were every day, some were a little less.
Wow, that must have been fun to schedule. Yeah. Oh, my goodness,
Darla. And it usually takes an hour.
Yeah.
So it does take a bit of time.
Yeah.
And just planning for that and hopefully having a garden girl that's living close by makes it even easier.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And now just with watering, my mind jumps to fertilizing. So do you garden fertilize? Do you have a program that you initiate? Do you have the guests
do themselves? And I've never done it, and even in my own, I've very rarely gotten into, adding a lot of extras other than, every couple of years adding some nice new soil or compost to a garden. Right. Again, keeping up with the mulch as well. Mm-hmm. And either nowadays with, so many live mulches coming out and some new products that, are adding back to the gardens. But other than that, adding actual exterior fertilizer, except for things that might need it, like rhodos and, a few other items that tend to always need something like that to perform, I usually don't. I like them to hopefully live on what they're given.
Oh, okay.
And perform, and I've had good luck. If there is problem areas, and that's in the end, the answer. Sometimes it's recommending if it's for trees, deep root feeding, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Some people do it all the time, especially with tree companies. And but if I'm transplanting, yes, I will use some transplant fertilizers while we're there to give them a chance.
Right. Yeah, to really help them not go into shock. Yeah.
Yeah, hostas and things like that generally don't need it. Yeah. They do well no matter what. But if you're doing something a little more sensitive, then yes.
Yeah, if only people knew we could leave their hostas like bare root laying on the front lawn.
I should have gotten about 6 of them in the ground today, and I didn't before the rain again. And they're in solid clay. But I'll just have to wait up for the next dry day for me to get in that bed again and get them in.
Yeah.
And they're still fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. So, I want to go back to Carla's point, just and asking them that saving, how much it costs, and you saying, you can work with everybody's budget. But in the end, don't you think? Because sometimes people don't realize the value, boxwoods, yews, even cedars, Japanese maples, like the value of those plants. We're not just talking about your hostas, yeah, they're $15-$20, they're not much type of thing. But don't you think in the long run, you really do save homeowners money? Because you're keeping everything healthy and preventing them from, cutting them at the wrong time. If you cut our boxwood and your yew hedges and everything all at the wrong time, then there's winter damage. And so
winter damage or even heat damage because people are out there, cutting junipers in August in the full sun. And then you have a dry mess for you later. Definitely. I think we're a service that to hopefully protect their initial investment in the plants. I mean, there are plants, yes, that are definitely less expensive and, sometimes saving them might not be the best choice, especially for rearranging and doing things like that. It might be better to get a new one. But especially once you've spent the money on boxwoods, any of those evergreens, Japanese maples, etc. Even a climbing hydrangea.
Yeah.
You're putting in one of those, and to get a nice, good-sized one. When we spend $50 or $75, it might take a long time to get going, but once they do, they're definitely, having the right person treating them and saying, well, maybe we should just leave it, finding, some other methods to keep them happy and healthy and the garden looking as good as it was planted when it was brand new.
Yeah.
Just maybe a little fuller.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the end.
So in addition to, saving people money in the long run, I think, and then also when it comes time to sell their house, or have you noticed that at all with maybe homeowners that have sold their house?
Yes, you get, especially in the last 2 years, a lot of new homeowners, first time having a garden, don't know where to start. And of course, they saw it. It was either perfect when they saw it.
Yeah.
And now they've moved in and it's not so perfect, and to get it back there, because, homeowners are so busy on the inside packing up and that they tend to forget about the outside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or it was staged and that was just when it was being for sale. And so helping them get to know what they have, what's of value. Some people, they still come in and, don't like anything. They didn't buy it for the gardens, perhaps.
That's right.
We've had, some customers move in and it was a beautiful full perennial garden, and they're going to change it and make it to something that they love to see.
Right.
Which is okay. And then sometimes some of their old stuff is of value, and if we can take it and find a new home for it, and they like that idea, then that's great. Nice. Or, of course, adding more to it that makes them happy, or whatever path we can hopefully lead them down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because there is value out there. And you try to explain to someone that a tree has been there growing for a little while, and just, some people at times they're moving in the summer, or I had a Milton property, brand new property, everything that's planted is just spring, and they moved in and missed it all. So they think nothing blooms.
Right.
So they're going to see it next spring.
Yeah.
Now it's cut back, and a little tamer. But, and going forward, adding in some things for the summer and fall that they're missing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's important is educating them. So I think the value that you bring to the service, to the industry, I think is tremendous. And hopefully the other, I want them to follow suit, right? The guys that have the big crews that aren't necessarily paying that detailed attention. I think it's a good lesson, right?
Yeah, and it's just people, for as far as the heavy workloads and the workload that goes in the garden, it's just having the people who know it.
Yeah.
Should know it. And I mean, if I walked into a fall garden and didn't necessarily know, or even a winter garden, and they're like asking me what's there, what's not there. Half of it I might not be able to even see until. So growing with it and giving, the chance to see it in the different seasons,
right,
and looking at it for your first year that's there, and really seeing what happens through all the seasons, is another good path to lead them down, to not rush and make a rash decision, because they might be missing something beautiful that's out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we take it out, and then we end up putting it back.
Yeah, and actually, that's kind of the short story of me. How I even got into this industry was we bought our first house in the winter and moved in the winter, and spring came, and we were like, holy cow! And we rototilled everything, right? Because I didn't know what anything was, and it looked like it was too much work, and it was hundreds and hundreds of dollars of perennials that we, and then I put jammed all these large growing shrubs in that I then had to take out, right? So I have that in my biography and my website. I mean, so I really I get it, and it is such a common problem, and I'm always so happy when new homeowners call me. I've had a whole bunch this year where they've called me for design before, and one happened today. They haven't even moved in yet, they haven't even officially closed on the house yet.
Yeah, and they're already.
But they want, and I've been there when they're during their real estate visit, when they actually don't, and that's what we planned on today. This lady today doesn't take possession till the end of November, beginning of December, but she wants me there in November to, start working on the design. So I think,
that's fabulous.
Isn't that great?
Thinking ahead and knowing, because they want, their outside space to look just as good. Most people, I find it takes them a year before they realize, but what they had to what they have a year later, big change.
Big change. Yeah. So you were mentioning your staff that are all avid gardeners. Do you have a hard time finding those gardeners that want to work in other people's gardens?
So far, everyone has found me in different ways.
Excellent.
Different points in... obviously my friend and I started together, and then my mom worked in other people's gardens, so then she joined us with ours. We've had people go through of friends who, might have been out of work at the time and were sort of in between deciding which route to go, but they still had their own gardens. They still knew how to garden. So, they came in, whether it was for a year or two even, and led them down a completely different path than maybe they would have thought of before.
Right.
We've had obviously some daughters of other mothers as well, which has been fantastic. And, usually people just find me online, even like how you found me.
Yes.
They send me off an email.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, well, sure. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
It's different people I've met and over, the last couple of years, and being open and sharing ideas, and the same with our other gardeners. They make work in other people's gardens when they're not working with us.
Yes.
Which is, because I really enjoy working in a team. I find it difficult to work by yourself.
Yeah, it is pretty hard.
There's not much motivation, I guess. I don't know. But some people still love to do that outside of it, and they're working in others, and I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
There's and friends. It's amazing how it just grows and spreads from there. Sometimes when you're not trying to keep it to only you.
Yes, definitely.
And sharing the love, and there's other areas and other places in the city to work, and there's places we can't get to. So.
Right. So tell me about let's talk about your area. So you cover a pretty good size area, though.
Yes, originally when you're starting out and you're getting your name out in your own town, you tend to not find as many people right there. Of course, now that's different, but 11 years. So, and I enjoy working in other areas. You've got your different soil types. You've got your different aesthetics of the houses, like everything. Mm-hmm. From working, in Etobicoke. I tend to stay in the West End just because traffic has gotten a little crazy in the last couple of years, especially. So it just takes even longer to get there. But Etobicoke, Mississauga, Oakville, Burlington, now some Milton. The homeowners, it's grown so much.
Yeah.
You have a great mix of properties, but again, it's bedroom communities, and people find they're not getting home in time.
Right.
And then they're spending the whole weekend outdoors if they don't like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But usually it's enough with the lawn. need some help in the garden. So Milton, and we do some Georgetown ones. We go up a little north. It all depends on traffic patterns. So we have a few farther away, but they're just so enjoyable to go to.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So I like going to different places.
Well, that is great. Well, it was great chatting with you, and I did send you the email to learn more about how your business works, because it's going to be an area that I wanted to focus on more for my business.
Yep.
And you've been tremendous help for me with that, and just even the faith that I could actually make it happen. So thank you for that, Darla.
Yes, and hopefully, you get out, start going down this path next year. And where will you be?
Yeah. Sorry, my area. I'm going to stay in Durham, so I'm going to stay kind of Pickering, Ajax, Whitby, Oshawa, that area.
Okay.
And so that, the east end of the city, same thing, bedroom communities, people that are, getting on the GO train and getting home from the GO train. And the last thing, they want to sit down in their garden and have a drink. They don't want to get out the weeding and the garden gloves and all of that. So, So I'm hoping to help, because I think there is a niche and there is a need out there for people.
Yeah, definitely.
And also I think there's a lot of people who are who used to really love to maintain their gardens, and with the housing prices, they can't really downsize, right? There's nowhere for them to go to a smaller house. So they are, staying in their homes and just looking for those services like the lawn care and the snow removal and the garden maintenance.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of people that we can really help them stay in their homes and enjoy their yard and their space. And yeah, it's a little bit of money and investment, but they've already invested in that landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So keeping it, and even with however much help they might need, little or a lot.
Yeah.
That's where we come in.
That's right. That is right. So I think your business model is wonderful. So, and I'm glad that we got to, delve deeper into it, because I think sometimes people do get intimidated, like, oh, hire a gardener, or like, hire it as maintenance. How practical is that? But it is really practical, and I think it's great that you have the knowledge and that there are gardeners, as opposed to guys, because I think sometimes the lawn companies say that, oh, they'll take care of weeding or they'll take care of the cleanup, and then that's where people lose their prized peonies or their prized coneflowers, So I think there is a different service out there, and I hope our listeners, anybody who's interested, where can they find you, Darla?
Well, they can obviously check out what we'd like to do on our website at thegardengirls.ca.
Okay.
And there's a handy link there to send it to me an email at inquiry@thegardengirls.ca, and we can see if we can fit you in.
And you're on social media?
And I'm on social media. We're on Facebook as The Garden Girls Oakville.
Okay.
I believe. And Instagram as well. In these day and age, you always have to change one thing out of your name.
Right.
Someone else has it. So we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. I think that's pretty much all of them.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, different ones get to different cover. And, of course, we try. We even have Pinterest boards of all some great ideas and stuff out there, too. So
that's good to know. Excellent.
And I think that's a great way of sharing, with people. Mm-hmm. I find that sending them pictures from there actually works quite well.
Yeah. No, I think
this is the plant I was thinking.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. This is a great
really
show. Oh, good. Well, definitely. I mean, there's lots we can talk about. So anytime you want to have anything else you want to chat about, you just let me know.
It sounds like fun.
Okay, good. Oh, so we'll talk soon, okay?
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Bye, Darla.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Darla.
Well, there you go. So garden maintenance. So we've talked a bit about helping people. What we do here on the show for you is help you learn how to take care of your garden.
Yeah.
But if there's someone who doesn't, has the budget, and not everybody does, but I think it can be flexible, but really does need the help, then there are resources out there. And so more information will come about my plans for expanding I know in my intro I say design-only business. So I am going to be expanding into doing the weeding, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly weeding for people to help them maintain their gardens. And especially because once I design a garden and put a garden in, I really want it to be looked after, right?
Exactly.
And So that's, so part of my decision is a bit selfish as well. But I'm excited on this new venture, and Darla's been a tremendous help and inspiration of how much she's accomplished in that area. It's a big demographic that she covers, big geographical area. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. So I hope if our listeners have any questions, you know where to find us. You can, my website's downtoearth.ca with the number 2. And you can email me at joanne@downtoearth.ca. Follow along on all our social media links. And we're out of time, Matt.
We have run out of time.
Hi, Gary. Bye, Gary. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Down the Garden Path here on Reality Radio 101.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your hosts, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101.